Synthetic data will be used more and more in the future. Some reports have shown it, outstripping the amount of real-world labeled data over time. I think in the next several years, synthetic data solves or helps solve some problems. You can, in theory, reproduce an edge case 1,000,000 times with a relatively limited cost, just the cost of the software, the cost of the computing power. You don't need to label, you don't need some extensive labeling effort for that simulated data necessarily. We work with some of our clients now to help verify or determine if simulated scenarios are accurate, if they represent real-world behavior or approximate real-world behavior. We also work to help QA and verify some of these simulated data. So simulated data is important. However, certainly the real-world data that's being collected, that's table stakes. That absolutely has to be done. The simulation cannot take place until the real-world data is first annotated, first processed, and models are trained utilizing that.
When I think about the various forms of data that are feeding into the machine learning model system, synthetic data is an interesting new field that is evolving. It started out, I think, as a way to create data that is generally hard to find in natural data sets. So for example, extremely rare events, the flooding of a nuclear reactor, for example, that it is obviously impossible to actually collect real-world data for. I think synthetic data can replicate black swan events in order to help train models that rely on that data. I think it has a lot of use in terms of expanding the range and variety of data from a basic core of a data set. So you could take images and flip them, change their color, change their contrast, cut and paste bits and pieces of each other, and kind of create these Frankenstein data samples that you can use to enrich your machine learning experience. How that expands out into the actual machine learning system is, I think it'll be one of the pillars to support it, but not the main pillar. And it will require human oversight to make sure that the synthetic data you're generating is meaningful before it goes and contaminates your model. So it's going to need both careful authoring of the synthetic data as well as careful monitoring of the synthetic data. But it is fundamentally a very powerful medium. It is still very customized to the use case, but we'll start to see more broader application of it in the next few years. I think synthetic data, like I said, is one pillar. The human in the loop is still the driving force. The synthetic data helps augment data that's hard to come by or that's hard to replicate, but it's only one part of a large data sample that's needed. It cannot replace real-world data for a variety of applications. It can augment it and provide some edge cases that are hard to recreate. I prefer to think of it as enriching the data set rather than replacing the data set.